Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 203.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. Changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. Welcome back, listeners, to the first totally new episode of 2023. Ryan Dailey and Matt Reagan, creators of the brilliant Operation 36 program to help beginning golfers have fun and become skilled golfers, agreed to do this interview with me. They also just published a book on Operation 36, How to Create a Junior Golfer, the Operation 36 Model. Enjoy this fascinating and fun interview with Ryan and Matt.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 203 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. And I'm delighted today to get to talk with Ryan Dailey and Matt Reagan, creators of the amazingly successful Operation 36 golf program. Since they started this in 2010, there have been more than 625 Operation 36 locations, more than 1,400 experienced coaches, and most importantly, more than 77,000 happy golfers. A week or so ago, when I kind of made some notes about things, there's one little phrase that really stuck out to me, and I'm sure it'll come back and forth throughout the interview, and that is progress is everything. And there's a big part of what you guys are doing and what's made this successful. So Matt and Ryan, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Tony.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Well, each of you talk a little bit first about your personal stories, maybe for a minute or two each. What got you in the world of golf and how you decided to connect with and work with each other.
Sure. Matt, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
it's always fun to do this when you have two people and who goes, right? Yeah, right.
It is. Great question, Tony. So just a quick background. So I got into golf a little late. It started when I was 16 and quickly fell in love with golf, got good enough to be able to come to Campbell University's PGA Golf Management program, applied, got in, and that's where I met Ryan. Ryan was the assistant director of the PGA Golf Management program. And so Ryan was essentially my teacher all through when I was a student at Campbell and helped place me on internships. And he knew all along that I wanted to coach. So, coming back from my last internship, Ryan had a unique situation where he was able to start a junior golf program at the university's golf course. And I was coming off of an internship from Minnesota, taught with Brad Pluth for 7 months in Minnesota, and worked with a lot of kids and fell in love with junior golf. And kind of the impetus of, I came back to Ryan and said, hey, I really want to do something with junior golf and think through how to build a junior golf academy. And little did I know he had the opportunity at Campbell to start a junior golf program, and I still had a year of school left. And Ryan invited me kind of on the journey with him, and then we kicked it off. So that's what brought us together, where our backgrounds aligned. And Ryan, what else would you add to that?
Nothing. I guess maybe I'll give my golf background, and then we can go. You want to do the company background? Okay. Yeah, similar to Matt, I think we both had a similar start in golf. Matt started when he was 15, 16. I think I started pretty close to that, maybe 14, 15. Both of us are upstate New Yorkers, so there's a lot of snow on the ground for us, so we didn't play a lot of golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, and So I think part of the motivation in Operation 36 for us is to try to give others the opportunities that Matt and I didn't have. Matt didn't have a coach near him. I didn't have a coach near me. I didn't have a program to follow. Matt didn't have a program to follow. So a lot of our motivation is to provide what others didn't have. I started a little bit later, like I said, went down to Campbell to try to play college golf, but quickly realized there's a lot of really, really good golfers, especially in the South, where they can play golf 12 months out of the year. And after that experience, I went out to Texas to try to get better at the game through coaching. Spent a couple of years taking quite a few lessons to try to get better at the game. Did not see positive results and just kind of tried to find coaches that could help and stumbled upon David Orr in North Carolina, who's a great mentor to me and Matt and our program over the years. And he measurably progressed my game to a point where I could shoot in the 70s again and shoot near par. And it was a motivation on my end to not have anybody else go through that same process where they get 20 strokes worse by getting instruction versus getting better. So that's kind of been the motivation on our end. And then it was just serendipity. We just got a very lucky chance to run a program in a very remote area of the country where there's not a lot of money, but we figured out a way to do it. And the nice thing was, Tony, we didn't have to make money. That was a big break that we had, right? Matt was a student. I was a faculty member at the school. So we could experiment and try things. And we did that for 5 years. And it didn't matter if we messed up or made a little bit of money or lost money or any of those things. And I don't think if we had that break or that moment, I don't think we would have gotten to where we are now. We just had a lot of things line up for us. And then that kind of brings us to the opportunity to train other coaches, which we never thought possible, but other coaches saw what we were doing at Keith Hills in North Carolina. And really the only thing that we were doing was copying other sports like karate, gymnastics, dance, where the students come not just to a private lesson once every 6 months or once a year, but they come to group coaching on a consistent basis. And we really hit it off when we figured out in 2015, 2016, that the reason people fall in love with the game of golf is not because of a game you play on the driving range. That might get them excited the first time they come or the third or fifth time, but you got to get them on the course. And if you can get them to fall in love with playing the game, and playing the game is so much fun. You're outside. You have your own set of clubs that you can call your own. You can dress up your golf bag how you want. You can have your own grips. You can have your own glove, your own tees. When you hold the ball out, you feel like, man, I just made a 6. You write that on the scorecard, and you think to yourself when you're walking to the next tee, what do I need to do to get a 5? And that's really what golf is, right? You get a certain number, and then you're trying to get a little bit better. And Matt and I hit a home run when we came up with the concept in 2015, 2016 of start at 25 yards, shoot 36 and back up. And it's just been this journey over the last 7 years of trying to figure out how to make that experience as good as it can be. Like Matt and I were on the phone this morning for almost 2.5 hours, just problem solving. How can we make the experience better for the students and the coaches? And that's what we do on a daily basis now. We're just trying to figure out how do we make it better? How do we make it better?
Yeah. Now, Matt, before we kind of go on, I realized when you said you're from Minnesota, Minnesota. It didn't really take, did it? I'm a U of M grad, but
okay. I'm originally from upstate New York, but I did an internship in Minnesota.
Yeah, so, right.
For clarity. So, but no, the ODA didn't take while I was there.
Well, this was discussed a lot in the book, which is your book, How to Create a Junior Golfer, but. I kind of called it the big fail, right? And when you started, I guess it was in the beginning of this sort of 5-year period. Talk about what happened and then how you kind of got, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
Ryan, you want that one? You want me to start it, or?
You can take it if you want.
Yeah, over the first 5 years, I mean, if you start at the beginning, we ended up getting 3 students to sign up with the basic idea that you come once a week for 8 months out of the year. And then that slowly grew over time to say, well, once those 3 students signed up, Ryan and I got together and said, oh no, we have to figure out something to do with them every week and make it fun and motivating and show that they're getting better. So that's what that environment that Ryan spoke to. We didn't really need to make money. So we just started and invested everything we made back into the golf program for those first 5 years. And we had the kids coming to a group coaching class. We developed a curriculum and a bag tag and a way to measure that they're learning and can show skills, and made that a fun experience, as well as studying gamification and human behavior design and curriculum design to see, that we can progress them to the next step, and we know where they are in the process. But the biggest fail that we had that took us 5 years to really realize is we had 80 students coming once a week for 8 months out of the year. And in that 4th to 5th year, we just expected, because it's been so consistent, we had like a 95% retention rate, that all those students would sign up again in the spring when we kick back off in March. And we turned the corner into January and said, hey, spots are all going to get opened up. Who's returning, who's not? And we got tons of emails of people one after another saying we're not signing back up again. And this was a really hard time, because this is just as we're trying to figure out how to make make a living doing this. We've been doing it for 5 years, and we thought we had it figured out. We had a bunch of awards we got from the Carolina section. Ryan was the Youth Player Development Award winner in 2013. I was the Youth Player Development Award winner for the Carolina section in 2014. And a lot of coaches are reaching out and saying, hey, can you help us? We'd like to do what you guys are doing. And we just lost 40 kids. And so, it was not a fun time. Yeah. And so what we did is sit back and we kind of talked to a lot of the families and say, hey, why aren't they signing back up? And, it all led to a lack of motivation or not a deep interest in wanting to return. And, these are kids we worked with for 2 to 3 years. And then there's the one that stood out to us the most was grandpa was funding the program for this girl named Claire. And the grandpa came from the West Coast to the East Coast to play golf with her after she'd been in our program for 2 years, and went on the golf course to play. And Claire didn't look like she could play golf. On the surface, she came to these classes every week. She could putt, she could chip, she could hit full swings on the driving range. But the actual skill of playing the game of golf, the grandpa was pretty upset that she almost looked like a complete beginner. So that one stood out to us the most. And we started looking at every player that left. And the one commonality amongst all those players that ended up leaving is they never actually played golf outside of our program, right? And so that's when Ryan and I said, okay, we need to find a way to get beginners on the golf course. We need to incorporate playing golf into the program. And when you look at it from a macro perspective in every other sport, of course, when you sign up for baseball, you're going to play in a baseball game. Of course, when you sign up for soccer, you're going to play in a soccer game. Of course, when you do dance, you're going to have a recital. When you do karate, you're going to do testing, and you're going to have a display of your skills. Gymnastics, very similar. So you look across the board, but in golf, we just say, hey, show up to these lessons on the driving range, and we hope you figure out how to play golf on your own. And so we spent an entire year of trying every format imaginable to get beginners on the golf course in a fun and motivating way, but also a timely way. That was the first thing that we ran into, was just trying to get beginners on and get them around the golf course in less than 2 hours, which was not happening. So that's where we settled on, hey, we were joking on the way to Pinehurst to train our first licensed location, Maggie Simons. And we said, even if we started our kids on the putting green, I don't know if they could get around in 2 hours. And two, could they potentially shoot par from there, which was the end goal of our program. And that's really the impetus of how we came up with start, close, shoot 36 and back up, because we just tested it the next week and it went incredibly well. We got around in about 90 minutes with 30 kids on the golf course. The kids were excited because they had a challenge that was achievable to shoot 36 from 25 yards away. Some passed, some didn't. The ones that did were so excited and were asking what's next. The ones that didn't quite get it were wanting to try it again the next week. And it just worked. And so, I don't think you'll find two pros that worked with the same kids to watch 40 leave, but then also continue to find that the number one thing we came up with was, after 5 years of trying to figure it out, was just how to get a beginner on the golf course. And that's the center of what Operation 36 Golf is today.
Now, did some of the kids that said, hey, sayonara, did they come back once? Were you able to get them? Or just maybe you said things like, hey, come check this out because it's a little bit different.
Right.
Curious, you know?
I still live in the area, Tony.
Yeah.
And that's just a little bit north of me, and I go out to the course all the time now with my boys. I don't see any of them. Once they had that, once they had that experience with us and didn't fall in love with actually playing the game, where you go out and you enjoy the hot dog after the round, you enjoy the outside, you enjoy all the nuances of the game, meeting new people. Once they lost that, or once they never experienced that, and didn't fall in love with that process, they really had no reason to come to the course unless somebody dragged them there. And that's not the situation you really want to be in, you got to drag somebody to the course. So, I mean, Matt was spot on in the description, and we really, really have tried to study motivation, human motivation, and figure out how do you motivate the player, whether it's a junior or an adult now. Op 36 is 50-50 now, 50% juniors and 50% adults, even though we started out with just juniors. How do you get somebody motivated enough to get off the couch and come to the course and play and practice without somebody else dragging them there? And we talk a lot about in the book being the guide. At some point, you do need a guide. You need somebody to guide you into the game. That's the whole point of the book, How to Create a Junior Golfer, is how do you be that guide as a parent to get them there? But then how do you get them to fall in love? And we tried many different things. We kicked soccer balls through footballs. We played music. I remember we had a big speaker out at the golf course. We'd play this music. And Tony, if you came and visited us back in 2013, 14, somewhere in that range, you would have thought it was like a circus out there. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Matt and I had a blast. We got some great videos of us doing some tug of wars with ropes and hopping and skipping and having a great time. But once they left us, they were only with us for an hour a week. They had no desire to come back to the course. So I think we were humble enough to look in the mirror and go, this isn't working. Okay, now we lost 40 people. It's really not working. Do we give up, or do we continue to try to figure this out to help others? And I think that's the whole goal of Op 36, is we're trying to serve not only students but also coaches, and finding the best way to get beginner golfers to fall in love with playing the game. And it just happens to be that we got to set a standard of 36 to get them to have something to reach for, which when we started, we thought it might be a little bit too competitive, too serious, too challenging, but it's all in the narrative of how the coach sets the scene. And we train our coaches on how to make this environment just unbelievably motivating for somebody to go out and shoot 48 their first time out is kind of the average we see from 25 yards away. And then the coach is there to cheer and support them to shoot 46 the next time, then 44. Then they might go back up to 46, down to 42, and then they eventually beat 36, and they've actually earned it. They haven't been handed the advancement to the next level. In golf, you have to earn it, and you have to write down your score. And it's amazing the level of emotions that people have when they actually pass 36. We see a lot of tears. We see a lot of excitement, and it's really cool to see. And they're excited about the next challenge because they just have to back up a little bit, make a little bit bigger swing. And as you know, Tony, the longer the course is, the harder it gets. And that's all we've done, is we've made it a layup to start, and then you move back to the 3-point line when you're ready.
Yeah. It sounds so simple in a way, right? But you already covered a little bit of the basics. You know, you start at like 25 yards, shoot 36, and there's other pieces, and then you move back maybe to 50 yards, I think it is. But there's so much more that you've done in the whole structure of everything, and you alluded to some of that, that is important to making it successful. Isn't that right? And talk a little bit about some of those pieces. I mean, you've got apps, you've got connections, you've got things that help people get excited. You know, What other pieces really stick out that you want to highlight?
No, it's a great point. There's kind of 10 years of layers of things that we have built in and then pulled layers out to figure out how it works. At the end of the day, the overall mission is to make it the most motivating and enjoyable experience for a beginner golfer to get into the game. So Just like you would put a kid in a school system and you go to that first day experience all the way through, you want it to be exciting, motivating. You want them to know what the next step is. The challenge is getting alignment amongst golf professionals to say, hey, this is the model or the direction we're taking you. Here's the curriculum that we're taking or using to get you there. And then being able to show the golfer without having to manually create all these things. And that's where kind of the technology and some of the gamification and the structure of it, there is a bit of an art to it being simple, and that's by design. It's so it can be communicated simply to everybody. That's really big on the front end and how things work. So from marketing the program to getting someone in to them clearly understanding the goal, that it's all by design. So you're 100% right. And that's when people look on the surface and it looks simple, and it took a lot of work to make it simple, right? Because it was way more complex back in the day. But at the core of Operation 36, you got to have where the students are going to play golf in a 9-hole event as a part of the program. And then and when they play golf on the course, they're going to start in level 1, which is 25 yards from the hole. After that round, the coach is going to log the scores in the app, and then it kind of automates all these kind of rewards that are already pre-built in the app to show where the student is on their journey. And as Ryan alluded to, we do kind of this, hey, personal improvement, all the messaging in there is, can you beat it by 1? And so if someone shoots a 48, the next goal is 47, and it's really clear in the app on what they're trying to achieve. And then, obviously to get better, they need to have that weekly group coaching with the coach. But now that they've played golf, it all makes sense. It's almost the way I like to look at it what if you joined a weight loss program, but you never stepped on the scale in the beginning of the program, but you just go every week to the gym? It would be a lot less fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
Right. To step on the scale afterwards doesn't really make much sense. But the nice thing is, by starting them so close to the hole, they're not only getting around the course in a really reasonable amount of time, you pretty much learn all those skills. You can learn almost every skill of playing the game of golf from 25 yards away. And it's just the intangibles of who goes first, who goes second, how does this work? The things that we don't talk about, and it's hard to teach without them actually playing. And then, so they do the weekly, they're playing on the course, we're tracking their development, and they do these weekly program where the coach is going to cover a skill each week. There's a standard 6-level curriculum that in each level, there's 12 skills, just like you have math, history, science. We have posture, putting, green reading, and there's one kind of educational objective that's taught in the class. And if the student can show that to the coach and demonstrate it to the coach over the course of the program, it gets marked complete in the app. And then once they shoot 36 for that level, it unlocks 12 more videos in the app for them to watch, to get educated, progress. And then once they shoot 36 from 50 yards away, it unlocks level 3 videos, which is just a progression on what has been taught before. You go from addition, to division, to, doing equations type thing. It gets a little more complex, a little more precise. And it just is, the idea is we got to keep them in long enough, Tony, to show them the long-term plan, that at some point, by the time they get to say 50 yards and can shoot 36 or better, they could potentially play a full tee box in under 2 hours and shoot a pretty good score, to be honest with you, right? And that's what we're finding, and that's the goal. So we set this big goal of shooting 36 from the full tee box. They're playing golf. They're coming to a weekly class with a curriculum, and we're tracking their development in the app. And then over time, they can just continue to sign up, and they're going to see they're going to see their progress. And let's say they leave for a year, they can come back, and since we track their development, we can continue to track it. And that's one thing we're really proud of, is we're one of the only golf program that can track, we can track beginners from their first round ever on the golf course until they can shoot 36 from the full tee box. And the coach can present a nice award that's automated from the app to give to the player, and says, hey, here's everything you accomplished so far. And on that report, it also shows what haven't they accomplished, because we want to open up a story loop that when they're at home and they're bored, they go, man, I'd love to go see if I can, beat that score again, or I can go beat that level. I've already beat these levels. And that's essentially what we're looking for. We want to open up these story loops with golf to invite people in, get them excited. They're not going to stay in all the time, But once you have a clear goal and you've seen where it's at, it's all about motivation and how to make it a lot of fun every step of the way for the long term.
Yeah. Now, parents obviously have to be, although, you did say that half of your participants now are not kids, right? I mean, I was going to talk a little bit about parents, and we will, but it's amazing that it's starting to get an uptake with just people that are wanting to learn golf.
And that certainly wasn't by design, Tony. We were on juniors, we were helping juniors, and it just happened to be a mom came up, tapped us on the shoulder and said, "Can I learn this way?" And so, well, I wonder why not. So then we didn't change anything. We taught it the same way we did with the juniors. It was successful, but we noticed there were some things, adaptations as coaches, we needed to do a little bit differently. We didn't need to call the games like Minecraft or Battleship. It was just a training exercise we're doing today, chipping into the circles. We're playing a putting game today called Leapfrog, or you don't even give it a name. And the interesting thing with adults is they really enjoy the level of detail of the instruction during the weekly classes that Matt talked about, because they understand when they play in their 9-hole event on Saturday and they come back to class on Monday, they're really excited about learning the skill to get better the following Saturday. Whereas the juniors, we've found some of them are excited, and there's 4 different types of junior golfers that we've experienced, and we categorize them in the app to help the coach understand what their needs and wants are. But there are some students that playing on the golf course, the 9-hole events, is not that important to them. They do it because it's fun and they get to meet other people, and that's okay. Those students might really enjoy the games in class, which is certainly fine. They come in and they play the games. They don't really worry so much about the curriculum, but they really enjoy the game. So it's more of a game-heavy type class versus the adults where it might be a little bit more instruction-heavy. And that's, I think, the beauty that we built into Op36 is the coach is the pilot. Like, the coach takes the information, takes the program, the system of Operation 36, and adapts it to the student in front of them and the needs of the facility that they're at. But yeah, we had no intention of going the adult route. It's just been eye-opening to Matt and I when we open the numbers each morning to look at the participants around the world. We're up to, you said 77,000 earlier. We're up to 100,000. We're over 100,000 right now, which is really cool. And it's interesting to see about 50% are adults, and of those adults, the majority of them are ladies. We tend to do very, very well with the moms and the ladies, starting closer to the hole, being able to shoot down being able to write down a score that's respectable, showing their husband, "Hey, I shot 39 this week," and the husband goes, "What? I've never shot 39 in my life. How did you go out and shoot 39?" She's very proud of herself, and she's very proud of the accomplishment, which she should be. There's no reason that any of us should be starting on the tee box like Matt and I did back in the day. I mean, Matt's got a great story. It's in the book. It's the first story in the book of how he started playing the game in high school and didn't even know where to put the bag. And he put the bag in the middle of the green to go putt. And we don't think anybody should have to go through that and not know where to stand and not know where to put their bag. And I think the first time I played 18 holes. I lost every golf ball in my bag and shot like 130. And most of the people that went through what Matt and I did and starting in the game are not in the game anymore. So our motivation is to try to make that start a little bit easier, a little bit more welcoming. We have to in the game of golf because every other sport does a pretty darn good job of welcoming new people into the game or whatever the hobby is. Golf is just a little bit behind.
And yet, as I think about you talking today, there's so much that golf has for people because, if you play soccer, if you play baseball, if you play football, being part of a team is something and it's important, but sometimes people kind of get sort of on the sidelines. You know what I mean? And instead of everybody that's involved with Op36 and who gets into golf kind of has that feeling of doing things themselves. For sure, right?
Yeah, and there's some power in that too, right? Like, yeah, Matt's going through it right now with his kids. I've gone through it with my kids, the different sports scenes. And in baseball, there's only a certain number of kids on the ball field. The other kids are on the bench. And the kids in the outfield, the ball's never hit to them if you're in like the 8U, 9U, 10U. And they're bored to death I had a kid come in yesterday that said he quit baseball because it was so boring and he didn't get to play. He wanted to do golf. Why? Because he's on the course every time. He gets to hit the shots, and even if he loses, he actually participated. So bringing that up on participation is so helpful, and it's in other sports too. The interesting thing about golf is that what we're trying to do is give every kid, every player an opportunity, inclusive, to try out the game, no matter their size, strength, coordination, physical abilities. Anybody can enjoy the game. You just got to get them out there from a yardage where they can see a little bit of progress and success. And once that light bulb goes off where they every hole's a par 4 from 25 yards away. So if a beginner golfer goes out or someone who had some struggles in some other sports and they chunk the wedge, then blade the wedge on the green, and then just miraculously two-putt, they've made their first par ever. And from 25 yards away. And we've had that happen numerous times. We've had students blade a wedge from 25 yards away in their first round. It hits the stick, goes in the hole, and we hear this roar from the fifth green. Yeah. And it's this kid, this 9-year-old kid that made a hole-in-one. And what a great feeling that kid has when he goes home saying, hey, I made my first hole-in-one. That never would have happened if he started from the tee box. Or it may have happened 10 years later when he finally could reach the green on a par 3.
Let's step back just for a minute and kind of before we end and talk just a little bit more about parents and what specific things, parents of the kids. And, to step back, Operation 36, you have to be 7 years old to start it, which makes some sense, kind of big enough to be able to do some things. But what are some of the unique things that you are doing related to parents and their connection with the kids?
Yeah, so it's when you're building a developmental golf program is how we look at Op 36, taking someone from their first round and showing their progress all the way to being able to shoot par from a full tee box. We're talking about a 10-year program, right? And that's essentially where we started in 2010. We said, hey, let's get everybody going. Let's get everybody enrolled coming once a week with the goal of getting them good enough that they could go play college golf. That's where we first started. That was the first impetus. And then we figured out how hard it is just to get someone connected in the first place. And one of the things we've learned over the last 10 years is if everyone can start the journey on the same page, then it makes the journey that much more enjoyable and easy for people to understand what's going to happen next. And we retain golfers longer. So, for example, if the parent understands why we do the classes, what the curriculum is, what the plan is, the 4 different categories that their son or daughter is going to go through, from exploratory to a social golfer to a recreational golfer, potentially, if they want, to a competitive golfer, to a collegiate golfer, right? So all of these are built into the program because we want to give this big picture. Just like if you're a parent putting your son or daughter into a school system, you would never put them in a school system where they say, look, there's no grades, there's really no curriculum. They come every week and it's very hands off and we let the kids learn what they want to learn. Well, in some cases that would work, but in most cases you need to have a progression or a narrative to know exactly what's going to happen. So for parents, being involved in the program, we give them tools to say, this is how you can be involved. In the book, How to Create a Junior Golfer, there's a whole section dedicated to this, right? And how, because they are going to, it is interesting because typically in say gymnastics, dance, karate, basketball, these different sports, golf is a sport where parents can literally be the caddy, in which we encourage for the student while they're out there. So we give them a lot of tips in how to engage with their golfer. And a lot of it is, letting the number one thing is just letting the student make a lot of their own choices, where parents and families think that I need to make sure they're not making any mistakes. And it's the complete opposite in golf, where, it's actually pretty simple. You put the ball on the ground from 25 yards away and you say, here's your club. and good luck, right? And that's always the moms or that sit back and don't try to act like they know what's going on or how golf works, are always the best caddies and the most supportive, and they're the ones that keep the kids wanting to be there. But they're definitely a part of the journey, Tony. So, but yeah, that's what we try to do in the beginning of Op 36. We have in the starter kits for the kids that we have, there's a 28-page parent program guide that essentially lays out the 10-year plan for the kid and how this program is going to take them as far as they want in the sport and how it can be run all season. That way, everyone has a plan that they're leaning into. And by having that model where you're playing golf, you're coming to coaching, and now we have a way to kind of categorize the students based on their age and skill level, we can have a pretty good narrative and support them better than we have in the past through traditional just clinics and dropping camps.
That's great. Well, we're going to end here in a minute, and I'm really appreciative of the two of you guys doing this. I think I've met both of you at the PGA show from time to time, but sort of two things at the end. Maybe you've already said it, kind of what's been the biggest surprise in the last, 2015 till now? And, do a little plug for the book. I loved the book. It was simple to read. It was interesting. But I think I learned things about human interactions and stuff like that, important things by reading it. You kind of distilled some of the things that you had to go through to create Operation 36.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, Tony, from my perspective, kind of the biggest aha moment in we started in 2010, so we're in our 13th year now.
Yeah.
Is just the power of the environment. Like, it's not so much like getting the grip like 2 degrees correct or 3 degrees, like getting it perfect, or getting the swing exactly where you need it to be, or getting the club fit absolutely perfect for that player. Yeah, those are important down the road, but what we deal with, which is the front end beginner golfer, that environment is so important. And if you can create a healthy environment, we've learned a lot. Matt and I have learned a lot from other sports and other hobbies. CrossFit is a great example of this. Typically at CrossFit, you don't go by yourself and just throw the weight around. You go there with 10 other people. You go at these really odd times, like early in the morning, late at night. So only the folks that are really excited to be there are there. And they motivate you in a community atmosphere. And if I'm having trouble lifting my weight, Matt wants me to do well. He's going to encourage me. And I want the same for him. I want to see him lift weights higher than he's ever lifted before. And what we've done in Op 36 is we've learned this along the way through other sports and activities is Op 36 is actually about everybody working together to beat 36. And all of us are excited when you do it. The coach is excited and supportive. Your fellow classmates, the other parents are excited. And when somebody beats 36, it's such a cool atmosphere because there's no resentment. It's not like when you beat 36, Tony, I wish I did it sooner. No, I'm super excited for you because I know the journey there, you didn't do it overnight. So I would say the biggest lesson learned over the last 13 years is how important community is, people working together. And now that we've got over 700 communities around the world, we're hoping to get to a point where if somebody raises their hand and says, I want to play, that they just go down the road to the local course and there's a community of 10 to 15, 20 other players that are just starting out and they go through this journey together. So I would say that's the biggest learn on my end. The book, appreciate the positive support on the book. It's in Amazon if somebody wants to grab it. I think if I was a parent contemplating putting my child in the game of golf, I would grab the book immediately. It's just $10. It takes 3 or 4 hours to read. It's 120 pages. And it's just like you said, it was designed to be a short, simple read just to give parents a heads up on what's about to happen and make the best decision possible. So there's no regret that they should have done something else because they didn't know. So we just wanted to create that for the parents. So hopefully that's helpful. And my biggest learn, Matt, your biggest learn?
No, I think I would just echo your thoughts. I think, through a golf professional's lens or a parent's lens, I think the number one thing that they think about, and I did when we first started, Ryan, was just how we had to get the technical skill roadmap right. And we had to make sure we taught the grip in the way and what's the most efficient way to do that. And it took a long time, obviously thousands of classes and 9-hole events and trying to figure out what to track and what's the most important to really take the pressure off and say, look, all the environment, if you get it right, where they're playing golf, coming to coaching weekly, but you're presenting the opportunity for them to play golf, that is the number one biggest impact you're going to have on students making sure that they become golfers. And so many golf pros think that the curriculum and how they teach the grip and that's going to be the absolute game changer. And it's so much more about getting, you become a little bit more of the guide where you're just setting up the environment. And if pros would look at it that way, and parents could just look at it that way too, to say their job is to find an environment that's getting them to play golf, has a plan for them, has a roadmap to be successful, and coaches that are all aligned, they're going to get good at golf. They're going to become golfers, and they're going to have a sport to play for life. And that's what we're passionate about now is, the brand Operation 36, the program and the model. The core is there. The book covers the core of what we have found over the last 12 years. And it's not just us, it's listening to the over 700 golf facilities that we have and the golf pros and saying, how do we make this better? As Ryan said, what they don't see behind the scenes is every day we're taking every bit of feedback. And now we're, under the Golf Genius umbrella. We merged with Golf Genius earlier this year. Yeah. And we now have the resources because they're excited about helping beginners and trying to solve this problem of retaining beginner golfers, that they're putting this, resources behind us to continue to execute this mission of introducing 1 million new golfers to the game. And it's just so much fun. And we feel blessed to be able to continue to work on this. And we hope, we can't imagine what 5 years will be when we have all the feedback from our locations and where it's going to be and what the experience is going to be like with the technology, bringing people in and getting it better and better over time, Tony.
Well, this was really great to get to do this with you today. And, I'm going to put links in the podcast notes to the book and to your website. But what a neat impact you guys are having. And, what a long way you came.
Well, thank you for having us on, Tony. We always enjoy talking about and reminiscing on some stories. And hopefully we meet you again soon in person, Tony. We can grab a cup of coffee, and hate that you're not going to be at the show this year because of your knee. But maybe next year you'll be at the show and we can grab a meal together.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Many thanks to you, Ryan and Matt, for sharing some of your insights about how you created the Operation 36 golf program. Operation 36 Golf will continue to grow, and it should. I put a link in the show notes to their website and to where you can buy their new book. The book is a wonderful and easy read, especially for parents of young golfers and beginning golfers of all ages. Again, thanks, Ryan and Matt. My shout out today, well, it was a little scary this week to convert to a new podcast process using the Riverside.fm podcasting platform. But it worked. The audio recording turned out great. And I'm so glad to not have to worry anymore if Skype will work to record podcasts. Thanks, Riverside. A reminder that there's a Support the Golf Improvement Podcast link in the show notes for this podcast, and your support for a much-needed upgrade to my 2012 iMac podcasting computer would be greatly appreciated. Well, that's it for today. 1 podcast recording down in January, 4 more to go before my knee surgery at the end of the month. Next up, an interview with Dr. Tyler Standiford, a biomechanics professor at the Utah Valley University. He'll share some of his research about golf speed training. Until then, take care, God bless Ukraine, and God bless America.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com